Hey, thanks so much for listening to the Ridge Community Church podcast. My name is John. I'm one of the pastors at the Ridge, and our vision is to bring the hope of Jesus into every home. So we want to bring you something hopeful and helpful for your everyday life, whether you've been following Jesus for a while or you're still trying to figure out exactly what you do believe about God. Now, you'll find on this podcast things that'll help with conversations about marriage and parenting and mental health and work, practical things to help you in your faith journey, and a lot more. So whether you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app or you're watching on YouTube, be sure to follow and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the hopeful and helpful conversations. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast. I'm excited to share a conversation that I got to have with Art, which started off as a conversation about how serving has just really impacted his faith and his life as he serves both in Ridge students and as part of our Oak Creek Franklin campus setup and teardown team. Really just expanded into things about his faith story, how he came to finding Jesus, the restoration that happened in his life and in his marriage because of that, and how he handles his own faith, just like things, and how he prays. It's just a really awesome conversation. I'm excited for you to hear it. This is my conversation with Art. Well, hey, Art, thanks for coming on to the Ridge Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I know I got a chance to meet you several years ago. The first time I ever met you was we were doing a game for students as we were like out in a field just playing some ridiculous games. And so I always know that like, you got some kids. We had a ton of fun. And but I hadn't really ever gotten a chance to hear more of the background of your story until a few years ago when you got a chance to go on stage and kind of talk with Mark about some of the things that, the way that faith had made an impact on you and being a dad. And so I'm really excited to be able to chat with you and talk about some of this stuff.
Oh yeah, man. Going up on stage was nerve wracking. Like if you watch the video, you see my legs are shaking and hooked on the rails under the seat.
Yeah.
That huge stage fright person right here.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe you could tell us just a little bit as we get started here. How did you first get connected with coming to the Ridge?
So my wife and I were going through divorce. Papers it was all filed and everything. We were halfway through. One day I walked through the front door and she had looked at me and said, you need to tell your son he needs to come to church with me. And she started going to the Ridge because of the 4th of July parade, saw them, and started going. She'd been a Christian her whole life.
Yeah.
Started going because she saw the parade and stuff, and then what we were going through. And so when I walked through the door and she said that, just trying to keep the peace, I turned and I was like, well, I'll go just so he goes.
Yeah.
And I was never a church person at all. I never went regularly for anything, never been baptized, anything.
Yeah.
Walked through the doors. Everybody wants to shake and greet hands and all this stuff. And I'm stay away.
Yeah.
I was very frightened of people and touching.
Yeah.
And then I will say that Dale, the greeter at the auditorium door, practically jumped out and grabbed my hand and shook it. And I was stressing, right? And I'll never forget that moment because it was it made such an impact then that when I sat down for the message and it was God reached out in the audience and was hey, this is where you need to be. This is where you belong. I want to lift you up. I want to put your life back together. And he sure enough did.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so you and your wife have stayed together. I'm sure that
yeah.
Man, I don't even know the right question to ask with that, but could you just share a little bit about how did God move in that situation and heal it?
Well, so from that message, it wasn't one of our pastors. It was a guest pastor.
Yeah.
And, so listening to, he had these foam weights that he was holding on the stage and holding them above his head and stuff and talking about the weights that you carry with you, throughout your life and stuff. Yeah. And then made me realize where I was. So much so that when we walked out of there, like I knew instantly, like I need to make a change. I need to reconcile with my wife. I need to, put in the effort to getting my family back together.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, the next series after this guy, because I don't remember what that series was Remodel, which was about tearing your life apart, building it back together. So I couldn't wait to come back the next week.
Yeah.
But before we got in the back door, when we got home that day, I just kind of grabbed her arm and I was like, I don't want this. I want to work on things. And she looked me dead in the eyes and was like, I don't believe you. I got to go to work. And I was like, ouch.
Yeah.
So then it started like the texting bomb back and forth, and it was like just constant. And I got this Tiger Never Changes Its Stripe stuff. And the biggest thing that I felt like I was battling wasn't just her, but like her friends that were supporting her in divorce.
Yeah.
But ultimately, accepting God into my life, I prevailed with him.
Yeah.
So it was like 6 weeks after that first church service that she gave me an envelope that she signed the cancellation of the divorce.
Wow. What was that moment like?
I can't even describe it.
Yeah.
It was like getting married all over again. Like, if you've ever been married, you've been up there in front of everybody, you have that person that you love, like without anybody else. It doesn't even seem like anybody else is in the room. Right. And it's just like, it was like that moment all over again.
Yeah. We, like our Vision Through Ridge, bring the hope of Jesus into every home. And so we talk about the hope that Jesus brings and the hope that people experience in their life all the time. And I think the farther that you get away from maybe the moment when you made a decision to follow Jesus or something like that, it maybe becomes less tangible for you. And I think what's really cool about your story is it's just so fresh. Even though it's been years ago at this point, right? It's still like, what Jesus did in your life and like how much of a difference he made. So when you hear somebody talk about the hope of Jesus, like, does that stuff just come back or what is that like?
Yes. And just recently we had the opportunity to speak with a couple about, cause they were struggling and they were thinking about divorce, and my wife and I went out to dinner with them, and, it would kind of explain things. I mean, we're not perfect now, but like there's a better understanding in how we relationship. We have our arguments, like we have
like
our
everybody,
own ways, right?
Like everybody,
why didn't you put the toilet paper back on the holder? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so at what point in this like journey, in your journey with faith or whatever, because I know now you serve at the Ridge and you help make those services happen that impacted you so greatly. Like what was that like? Did somebody approach you and talk to you? Like how did you decide to start serving?
So for me it was so this is 2018. So I'm like 7 years into the Ridge now. It came up in one of the message, like join one of the servings teams. It was one of those like casual things that they say every so often when the host is on stage, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, serving, man, like what is that like? What is I don't know what that is. Like, where do you even begin to serve? And I started praying about it. And honestly, I prayed for like a solid 3 months. So it was like November I started praying, and it was like February that I finally landed in my initial serving spot. Yeah. Took my kids to students to drop them off, and Shelby was there. And I just kind of looked at her and I was like, do you mind if I just hang out so I don't have to drive 15 minutes back home and then 15 minutes back here?
Kind of dip your toe in the water.
Yeah. And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Well, while I was there, from kind of like where I was like hanging out, there was a basketball hoop right next to that. And there was one of the students was just shooting hoops, and I was like, "Hey, you wanna go against each other?" And he was like, "Sure." And so like I made a connection with him in that basketball, and come to find out later, like he had a video game addiction and stuff like that. So like playing basketball and stuff wasn't something like he typically did. And when I went home that night, I was like, "All right, God, I hear you." Yeah. And so I had approached Shelby and said, "Hey, what is it? Do you need help in the students? Like, can I serve here?" And she looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, I was actually thinking of asking you." And I was like, "Well, that works out."
Yeah, that's awesome. So, but it took you, like you said, 3 months to get there. What were those prayers and conversations like? I'm sure you had like hesitations or like reasons why it wasn't yes right away, you know. And what was that thought process like? Because I'm sure there's lots of people listening.
Was like,
oh, go ahead.
I didn't know what greeting didn't seem like my thing. Yeah. I did work at Disneyland for like 6 years, so customer service was like in there, but like I couldn't see myself standing at the doors and greeting people all the time.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, because I had just came out of like this shell, right?
Yeah.
So I had like these walls up and they had just crumbled down, and so it was all fresh to me. And so I just had the conversations with God, like, "God, like, where do you want me to serve? Like, I have no idea. I didn't even know where to begin." And I was beginning to think like, man, I don't think I'm ever going to end up serving anywhere. Yeah. And then he showed me, you know, he presented it to me.
Yeah. And since then you've like, I feel like always have had at least some place where you've been serving. How has it become like a normal like rhythm that's been a part of your life?
Yeah. So I'm still serving in students. Absolutely love it. This year I will say was a bit trying. At one point, I'm going to be honest, I was like, "Oh, man, like, I don't think I'm getting through to these students. I don't even know why I'm showing up here." And then, and no sooner did I say that, did everything start to turn, and it started to click with them that like, we went to camp. Like I saw these boys like crying at camp in prayer, and like the connections that they made with each other. And it ended so different from where it started. Like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's for me, offering that, you know, that setting for somebody to be able to be vulnerable with each other is like, that's my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I want people to connect with God.
How do you feel like serving has impacted your own relationship with God?
I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I've definitely had my moments like, all right, like I'm serving, but like, what am I doing? You know, I felt like I wasn't like hearing like any of these like stories of like, oh yeah, because Art was leading, I learned this from him, and then anything like that. And I just kind of felt like, well, I show up and I lead, right? Or like I show up and serve, and I didn't feel like I was having an impact for a while. And then it started to like, when I started having those feelings, it started coming out. Like people were like, "Oh yeah, like if Art hadn't talked to me, I would have walked away from the church. You know, I was only a couple weeks away from that, or I may never have served." And these are people that are like fully rooted now.
Yeah. So
it's definitely for me, like with God, it's definitely like thank you, God. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to provide a setting for somebody else to build a relationship with you.
What's really cool about that is just how faithfully the continuation of the process, like you're going through it, and it's not like you have this immediate feeling right away of like, oh, what an impact I'm making. You know, I think that's a very realistic like portrayal of just what it can be like, where you're serving people and you're like, am I making an impact? I don't even know. Right. And yet you keep going. And then you hear these amazing stories of like, no, God is using you to impact people's life. And now people are experiencing hope, and people are having their lives change because you said hi to them, because you engaged with them, because you had a meaningful connection. That's so cool.
Absolutely. It's actually, it's pretty humbling when you start hearing the stories, because not hearing them does make it a little tough.
Yeah.
Because you feel like, am I serving right? Am I leading these people the right way?
Yeah. Man, has that it sounds like that's just like even deepened your own faith, because you're seeing God do some really cool things. And it's like, is that true? Like, do you feel like your faith has gotten stronger because of how you've served?
So from 2018 to now, I'd say that my relationship with God is solid.
Yeah.
Like I'll tell anybody, I love him.
Yeah.
For what he did for my life, flipping it around. Whew. Man, some conversations are just hard, right?
Yeah.
But that's how much love I have with him. It brings tears to my eyes just even talk about it. But yeah, I don't see that breaking. I've seen, talking to my wife and hearing her say, like, how can you be so trusting and so, I don't know, how do you say it? So Christian. And I'm like, you've been a Christian your whole life. How can you not be?
Man, I think that's just a really cool picture of like, I don't know. I think it's really easy at times to forget the things that God has done for you. Like unless you make an effort to like remember those things, but even as you're sharing, like, it's like the way that you're talking about it is like, yeah, because I experienced this life change, because my life is better now than it was before because of what God did for me. And that fuels that trust. Like you said, that like that faithfulness, I guess, is probably a good word there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's that 100% trust and faith in him that he's going to do his plan. And I'm just along for the ride.
Yeah. When you think about like your chances to serve others, do you feel like that spilled over into, I don't know, like how you interact with your kids, your family, or things like that?
Yeah, with like work and my family, I don't know. There's kind of like, I kind of oh man, like I'm not gonna be able to say it. I put them into boxes, right?
Compartmentalize?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
I was gonna say it wrong, and I knew I was gonna say it wrong because I said it wrong like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do it here. So with my kids, like nobody led me to God. I mean, my wife has been a Christian her whole life, and I've heard about it throughout our marriage. She's tried to get me to go to a few churches, and it just never sank in.
Yeah.
It just wasn't my time.
Yeah.
And I know now that God has a plan, and I couldn't be me, who I am leading or serving now, without me having traveled the road I traveled.
Yeah.
Therefore, like with my kids, I don't force it on them, but I do look at them and I'm like, oh, like, you should be doing it this way, not that way. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, I know you got to walk your path. And I know the foundation that your mom and I have laid down for you, you'll be there. And I trust that because I trust God. With work, I brought prayer into meetings that I've had.
Yeah.
I do tread lightly because it is work, but
totally.
I've had many conversations of that have an impact on people's lives with a conversation with God. And actually, just recently, I was down in Mexico at one of our customers, and one of the plant guys had drove me back to the hotel, and we had a 45-minute God conversation all the way there.
Oh, wow.
And it was absolutely amazing. It was like the best thing. I can't even describe how it was, because, you know, like, here I am, I'm 2,000 miles away in another country, and I'm having the same conversation I would have with somebody here back at home.
Yeah. Man, that's just so cool. I think that it's just very evident how much like your heart is in it and you care. And this is like a real thing for you. And this is like God has really changed your life and impacted you. I'm curious, you know, if somebody right now, they're thinking about this idea of, I want to get involved. I want to, you know, help serve somebody. I want to make a difference. Like, what advice would you have for them?
Pray. Pray on, you have your strengths, you know, your strengths and where you could be a solid team member in serving. But don't just go on that. Let God lead you to where you should be serving, because it'll fill you up a lot more than it will choosing your own path.
Yeah.
You know, let it be His path. And then, you know, don't let serving wear you down. Sometimes you got to put in the work.
Yeah. You know, man, I did not prep you for this question at all, but I'm just super curious because you talked about it a few times of just like this idea of like how you pray and talking to God and things like that. And we're in this series right now that we just started called Teach Us to Pray. And I'm curious, what has helped you be someone who like wants to pray and wants to connect with God through prayer? Like what has been the like, why is that? Why is that important to you?
So I can look back to my previous life, I should say, because now that I've been baptized, I've been reborn, right?
Yeah.
That I can specifically see moments in my life where God was acting and kept me on certain paths and didn't let me go too far off.
Yeah.
I, not being Christian or Catholic or anything, I still had conversations with God, even as, I guess I would say, as an atheist, kind of, because I didn't know what to believe. I was uneducated in religion and didn't know, but I knew that I always had this feeling that there was a God. And I did have conversations, and He did throw me some signs a couple times through there. And I know where He was acting. And so now, talking about prayer, having those conversations with Him is just amazing. Not that He's like sitting there like, oh yeah, you know, like He's not sitting there with his cup of coffee, right? Like,
right,
oh yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, like I remember watching that, you know, like watching your life, and that was a great moment. But He does answer in His own time. Like that is 100%. And so when I'm praying, I'm either driving or I'm in the shower. So those are my two like solid places for having a conversation with God. I've tried like kneeling by the couch or just sitting on the couch or something like that. That's not my setting.
Yeah.
But yeah,
man, I love that. I love that. Because I think that sometimes we get this picture of prayer is like in this dark room with like candles lit, you know what I mean? And like trying to pray to God. And if that works for you, that's awesome. Love that for you. But no, it's just like, it's setting aside time to connect with God and talk to Him. Cause He's there with you. I think that's really cool.
That exactly right there. That talk to Him is that 100%. It's not, I mean, it's prayer, but it's not like, oh, thank you, God, for this. Oh, God, I need this. It's like, God, like, thank you for today. Thank you for the birds that were chirping inside my window when I was trying to take a nap. It's like, thank you for the sunny day. That you can just like have those conversations like, God, like I know I was doing like 55 and a 35 and I apologize. And like,
please protect me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man, dude. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for talking about this. I know we covered a ton of different stuff, but just love hearing your heart and your journey and how God, I think, is continuing to use just like not only just your story, but I think really in a really cool way your willingness to show up and be present and serve and being open to what God wants to do. Because so much of it comes down to just being, hey, are you willing to listen to God and follow His guidance? And it's clear that you're doing that and you want to make an impact. And I just love that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and with the whole serving thing, like when you get connected with a team, like OCF it's more than a team, right?
Yeah.
Because like we're there at 6:00 in the morning. The guys who pull the trailers in, because we're portable, they're at the trailers at 5:30. There's a brotherhood and a sisterhood there that really like brings us together, and that's where it's more than just showing up to church service. Yeah. And then going home and forgetting about all that and going about your week. And then like Sunday comes around again, you're showing up for another service. Like you're building relationships with other Christians and you're getting to have like solid conversations with them while you're serving.
And in the midst of it, you're helping other people experience something really powerful too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's a cool test. Like you're covering all the bases there, man. You're getting your early rising up. You're connecting with others, and you're making an impact for God. So I mean, you got it all covered. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Art. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, man.
Well, that was my conversation with Art, and I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking about serving, if you want to get involved, you can follow the link in the show notes, because I really do think it is an impactful and just a meaningful way when you experience the hope of Jesus and you want other people to experience it too, just serving them in a great capacity. That doesn't have to be on a team. It can be just maybe sometimes it's just showing up and serving people well in your life. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ridge Podcast, and make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any hopeful and helpful conversations.